Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Factorio tutorial. My name's Root Negative, and this is not going to be too much of a tutorial today. This is more of a proof of concept factory showing what is possible with combinators. Now, I enlisted some help of a very bright man by the name of Gopher. He wrote a tutorial on combinators, and I enlisted his help because I was struggling with this idea. This is the Build Code Factory Mark II. The Combinator edition, shall we say. Over a year ago, Factorio released a video of a factory that could take instructions and build with only a little bit of waste quite a few different things. This is the next evolution of that. With the tools that the combinators give us, we can operate, use certain logic gates and certain logic to make our factory think for itself. Now, I'm going to just show you very quickly what it does, and then we're going to break it apart, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got this to work. First things first, I'm not a pro at this. My brain hurts from figuring this out, and Gopher did a lot of the work, probably 90% of the work here. I came up with the form, and I was thinking along the right lines. He pretty much helped me implement it. So, I'll, if you have questions, Factorio, ask for Gopher. Now, basically all we need to do is we go to this constant combinator. This is our order box, okay? And we punch in our orders. Now, the only things implemented at the moment are gear wheels and yellow transport belt, because I just wanted to show this as a proof of concept. You could expand this out and add whatever you want. You would just need to implement the logic for each individual item, and there's a little bit of behind the scenes. However, this shows that it's possible. So let's input, let's say we want 32 transport belt. Okay, now what this factory will do is it will build without waste. Okay, zero waste, exactly 32 belts. All I need to do is turn the key. And what's going to happen is we're going to separate out exactly the number of iron plates that we need. Now, in this case, that's 48, and I'll talk about the compiler in a second. Once we have 48 in this box, we're going to dispatch that to the line for assembly. So we've got 38, 40, 44, 48. Now, you see that this stops inserting. Okay, very important with these kinds of factories. You can't have too much stuff. Now, you may notice the yellow belts. This is just to help the inserters keep up. It's not perfect, but it kind of assists in things. Now, we need 32 plate to make the appropriate number of gear wheels, because we need 16 gear wheels for this build. Okay, the factory's done all the maths. You've seen what I've done. I've done absolutely zero work. I've just typed in what I want. The factory's going to figure out for itself what it needs. So down here, it's going to set aside the number of plates that it needs, which is actually 16, and it also needs 16 gear wheels. We got one more. It'll recirculate around, come in, and once it's got that, it's going to assemble the transport belt that we need. Okay, there we go. So we got what we need. It'll throw it in. It'll assemble its thing. It'll come around, and it'll throw it in this little box. Now, you could implement something a little bit more graceful here for your return, or your item ready box. This is just what I came up with. Now, what we want is we want 32 of them. We got 27, so we'll just need to wait a moment for them to recirculate and come off the line. 30. Who reckons this is going to be right? 31. 32. Bing. Now, we'll just check the line, make sure there's nothing on there. Yep, there's nothing. Okay, so what did we order? We ordered 32. What have we got? We've got 32. How about that? Of all the things in this world, doesn't that freak you out? Now, let's talk about the different parts of the factory. I'll try and break it down for you. We'll just put in 12. This needs to be an even number, by the way, because that's how a transport belt gets built. You cannot end up with an odd number unless you can put in a fractional amount of gear wheels. So let's talk about how this factory actually does that, and I'm going to try and keep it under 20 minutes. I'm not going to go too far into the logic. That's going to be up to you to figure that out. I'm just going to use some broad terms. and talk about the factory at a higher level. So basically, the idea is we put in an order, the player does zero thinking, the factory sorts out how much materials it needs and what it needs to do, and then outputs exactly what we need. That's the theory. So we've put in 12 belts, okay? This over here is what I'm calling the compiler. Now the compiler compiles what we need and breaks down our different products into actually what we're going to build and into some instructions that the factory understands. That's why I'm calling it the compiler. So for example, we have transport belt here, and what I've done, okay, is I've looked at the recipe and I've said, okay, well, 2 transport belt needs 1 iron plate and 1 gear wheel. Fair enough. So okay, well, let's check if we're getting a signal for transport belt. Okay, we are. We're going to output the input count of transport belt. So you notice here on the right hand side it says input count 18, 12 and 6, and output count is 12. So this is just checking for one particular thing. If we do have it, we put it through. So this is going to be our transport belt divided by 2. Okay, because remember, 1 gear wheel and 1 iron plate actually gives us two transport belts. So we have to do a little bit of maths there. And I'll actually just do the same thing there. We're going to divide that by 2, output the gear wheels, and this one's going to output the 2 and output the iron plate. Because I just copy and paste that. That's wrong. Okay, and then it's going to throw it onto the circuit network. Fair enough. However, we've still got these gear wheels, right? There's these gear wheels floating around in the network, so we need to figure out how much iron we're going to need for them. And that's what this little doohickey does. So same thing, check if there's actually a signal, if we're going to need some iron plates. Yes, okay, we'll pass it on, we'll do some maths. And remember, for an iron gear wheel, we need 2 iron plate. So we're going to say, alright, well, let's take however many gear wheels we've got, we're going to multiply it by 2, and that will actually give us the iron plate. At the end, because of how the circuit network works, if you output a signal, and it's the same as a signal that's already there, so for example, down here we're outputting 6 iron plate. If there's already a signal of iron plate, it's just going to add that signal together. The advantage of this is, and the kind of trick that I'm using, is that, okay, well this is going to output 12, and this is going to output 6. That's actually going to give us a total just by the sheer game mechanics. So that's the compiler. The next thing that we do is, okay, we've got some total numbers. We need 18 iron. So what we need to do is we need to set aside 18 iron so that then we can assemble that into our 2 different products. Firstly, the iron gears, and then secondly, the transport belt. So up here we have a reoccurring setup, okay? This is a logic gate with an RS latch. That's basically what it is. So what we're doing here is we're just saying, okay, well, whatever's coming in, we're going to multiply it by a dummy signal. We're going to come over here, we're going to check some stuff, and that controls the logic here. This RS latch determines where we are in the build. Right now, it's telling this to work. That's just the idle state of it. When we trigger a reset signal over here, this is a pulse generator, I'll come back to this. When we trigger a reset by putting some stone in here, it flips over to the batch side. So that's when it says, okay, well, we want to set aside 18 iron. Okay, that's all this is doing, okay? It's setting aside 18 iron. Once it gets 18 iron, this RS latch will flip and it will send the items down the line. Now this logic is reoccurring. We use it in all the places to control firstly the setting aside and then the using. So same thing here, we say, okay, well, we've got, well, actually I'll explain this part. We're not going to be using all of the iron plate to create the gear wheels. So what we say is we go, okay, we'll pull the gear wheel items from the compiler. Okay, so this is all the compiler. We'll pull the gear wheels and then we're going to do some stuff and say, okay, well, how much iron are we going to need? So it's going to go, okay, well, I'll figure that out for you. That's 12 iron, and it'll pass it into our little logic setup, okay? And it's going to wait for 12 iron here. Once we get 12 iron here, the RS latch will flip, and it'll put it into the factory, and that'll throw it back on the line for use later. Same thing here, except a little bit more advanced, okay? We're going to do some maths. We're going to figure out exactly of what we're going to need. So here we're pulling Oh, and this is actually probably a pretty good trick to point out. This is something Gopher came up with and pointed it out to me because I had no idea. When you divide something by 2, if it's an uneven number, it'll round down. I've got, because I'm using this, I know that I need to put a multiple of 2 into the actual order I will, but this is actually a bit of error checking that will ensure that we don't come up with a null ref or something funky happening in these boxes. So basically we're going to add 1 and then divide by 2. This rounds down to make it 6, and then we're going to do some mathematics here to say, okay, well, for that we need yeah, this many iron plate and this much gear wheels. We throw these into these just little logic gates that control the inserters themselves. It'll set aside this much, okay, in these boxes. Once we have enough of both, okay, so anything, or sorry, everything is greater than 0, we're going to say, okay, well, let's flip the latch, and that's what triggers the actual assembly. But we don't do that until we have enough, because the thing about this factory is you can throw iron on here all day long, and you can end up with too much of one thing, not enough of another, you know, things are being unbalanced. This is perfectly balanced by the way of the logic, okay, and the way we've got it set up, it just uses a signal and then does math on that signal. So it doesn't matter what I punch in up here. I could throw in, say for example, 112, it would do it. I'd throw in 256, it would build it. It doesn't matter because of the logic and the math. Now, the reset signal is for the RS latches. The way these work, these have to be reset. Okay, you see that there's this green wire coming here and here. Up here, there's also a green wire running into these top ones. The reset is to make it work again. It flips it from the putting it onto the belt up here, this one here, these two here, and it makes these start to work again. That's all this does. So let's trigger it once more, watch it through, and yeah, marvel in the genius that is Gopher and is the Combinator logic. And these are the things that are possible. Would I use it in a normal game? No. The way I play is I fill up the belts and I try and run at max speed. However, this shows what is possible. And you can expand this out to anything in the game, everything in the game. In fact, you could have one giant factory just going off into the distance that built things with perfect order. You see that's all gone in, yada yada yada. Actually, what I should do right here, let's just introduce that. And we'll see what comes out the other side. So we need 12, we've got 11, I think there's one floating around, there it is. Bing, order's done. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you can use combinators in a productive and useful way for the game. So, go have fun with it, enjoy it. I'd like to see some improvements upon this. I know that it isn't perfect. I can think of quite a few places where I could make it better, and it would take me a lot of time because I'm not very good at all of this. However, I hope this inspires you to go and make something crazy with combinators yourself, and I look forward to some of the crazy shit that people make up, because I think there's already been a game of life created, digital thingamabobbers and all kinds of good stuff, but yeah. That's for the future, so thank you very much for joining me. If you have a comment, be sure to leave it below.